Greetings, everyone. This is Lance Bell, and this is the weekend of November the 13th, 2015. Now, I don't have to tell you that the big news this week has been at the University of Missouri, and there's no question about that. However, I would like to spend this week's show on my thoughts on all of what's been going on. For the record, I kind of knew what was going on last week, but here in Ohio, there was really no press at all. However, this became a huge story this week, as you know. Well, now I'm going to try for all of you to put together a timeline on what happened. So if I have any holes, please let me know in the comments below, because I'm very interested. Now, apparently, this all started back on homecoming weekend there, when the protest group 1839 Built on Black blocked the parade. Now, apparently, that was because then President Tim Wolf's driver clipped a protester weeks earlier in a completely different protest. Now, we're not getting to whether it was intentional or not. That's a different story for another day. However, I will talk about this protest and its effects. Now, I am not saying that you should not protest at all. That's a right that we all as Americans have. However, this looked like a setup on the school, and I will explain. They knew full well what they would have no choice but to push them aside, especially if they required to have a permit, and this would get attention for their cause. Also, watching the video, I will say this: even if they were saying do not engage, it looked like they wanted to get hit, and that call me crazy, but that's what it looked like. It really did. Now, back then, it was the attention that they wanted, but they could have done it a way better way, and they know that. Now, also for the record, at one point he did speak to the protesters. This is not being talked about. If you do not believe me, here's a video from the Columbia Missourian, the student newspaper here, and where he spoke to the protesters.
Had lots of conversations, including conversations with protesters, where they came in and they asked questions, and I expressed my position on those particular questions. I followed it up with a note to Jonathan. And then when I got Jonathan's note yesterday morning, I followed it up with another note that I want to talk. I want to understand this. I want to come up with a way that we can get progress made on these particular issues. We have got to maximize everything that we can do, focusing on student success. And I can only do that through conversations, by understanding the hurdles and obstacles that are in front of Jonathan or anybody else, which comes from dialogue, comes from conversation. I have asked each of my 4 chancellors and diversity leaders to describe what it is that they're doing to have this inclusive, safe, and secure environment where we have a culture of respect for everybody. Racism is unacceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable, and we have to eliminate it. And it's, by the way, it's not one and done. It's a continuous investment initiative that we have to be on for quite some time. So that's my focus, that's my commitment, and we are going to continue to focus on this. This is something else that we have to focus on relative to diversity and inclusion. We haven't done enough, and we're going to do more. My actions will support my words.
They haven't so far.
What actions? You don't care.
Yeah, he doesn't care. Yeah. You didn't show action when we were in front of your car. You were whispering to your wife, you were smiling, you were laughing. You had your hands in our lap. You looked us in the eye and then looked away. I have that personal memory in my head, and it's going to stay there for a long time.
And locked in is not the problem. You are over an entire institution. It's not even just MU. MU is the largest institution, but you are over several institutions.
I'm not here I don't care what you're doing. I want you removed. That's why we're here, because we're standing in solidarity with Jonathan Butler. So I'm not here for a press conference. I don't want to talk to anybody. I want you resigned. I need for you to leave. That's not why we're here. We delivered the statement. I think that's all that we need to discuss. At this point, I don't care what you're doing, because you're not doing anything. You haven't made a statement about anything that happened with Concerned Student 1950 on 10/10/15. You have not made a statement about what happened just a couple days ago at Gateway Hall. So you don't care about racism. Racism doesn't matter to you. You don't understand systems of oppression. So we're not here to discuss anything. I think we've said what we need to say, so thank you. Have a good day.
I also have something to say as well. Tim Wolf, you said that you wanted to have dialogue and conversation, but when you met with Concerned Student 1950, you explicitly stated you had no intention on reaching out to us had Jonathan Butler not contacted you first.
Exactly.
So what do you mean you wanted to have conversation? You would not have had a conversation had it not been for the students contacting you. The students who your car hit, Tim Wolf, you were in the car that hit Jonathan Butler, and you didn't do anything. You didn't reach out. You didn't say anything. Now this man is on a hunger strike, and you want to have conversation. But you looked us in our eye and told us you didn't want to have conversation with us. You want to talk to everybody else. I have a problem with that.
You have a PhD. You went to Harvard. Like, you have all this educational privilege. So I just really don't understand how you're not getting it. Like, how do you have so much education and you don't understand systems of oppression?
I want you to understand that that's not an excuse for lack of action. Not understanding systems of oppression is not an excuse for you not acting the way you should, because you should know that. As a man in your position over students who are marginalized, you should understand systems of oppression so that you can take care of us.
Okay, here we go. Now, in all of that, supposedly there was a swastika created in feces on the door in the residence hall on October the 24th. I bring this up only because in this modern age of social media, there is no images or video on this. I'm sorry, folks, but I find this report very, very suspect. Now, think about it for a moment. If there's a claim but no proof, wouldn't you agree that if something like this happened, you would want proof? We all know the answer to that question, and you know you do. We just haven't seen any proof of that happen as of yet. Also in all this, we have Mr. Jonathan Butler, the graduate student that went on hunger strike until Wolf resigned. He stated, and I'm paraphrasing in regard to Mr. Wolf, the decaying flesh of the university. No. Now, Mr. Wolf's defense, he had correspondence with Butler. However, there was little results. So little, in fact, there was even more protest. As seen in the video here, you can see the mood of the students in that particular protest.
It is hurtful, it is disappointing, but it is completely unsurprising.
I'm out here in support of Jonathan Butler's life. One of my good friends, like a brother, like a family member to me. And I'm also out here for the immediate removal or resignation of Tim Wolf, the president. To be out here, I should be upset that I even have to do this, right? And I am upset because it says a lot about the institution that I'm in, but we're fighting the system here. One thing about the movement is it's never convenient, and we know that things are going to get worse before they get better, right? There we go. Now we're in business. It's not about any single one of us. And this moment is Jonathan Butler's life, but all of us that fight know that it's not about us. And when I'm out here fighting, when I'm doing this, I feel power more than I feel pain, because none of us are truly free until all of us are free.
Now, there was the shocker, the Missouri football team. Honestly, I did not see this coming at all. In the video I'm about to show you, he speaks on the decision not to play.
And we went back and forth, and I kept asking him, is it the right thing to do? I mean, should you wait, and so on and so forth. And they, I mean, I'm talking to guys that have tears in their eye and they're crying. And they asked me if I'd support them, and I said I would. I didn't look at consequences. That wasn't about it at the time. It was about helping my players and supporting my players when they needed me. And I did the right thing, and I would do it again.
Weren't going to participate in football activities. Did the entire team know?
We were very open. We just pretty much listened. They were very open, and they talked about a lot of things, and it was really cool to see them do that and communicate like that. And it's not unusual. I mean, it's not unusual in the culture that we have here. As I talked about Michael Sam a couple years ago, there are a lot of people might not agree with some of those things, but you know what? He's our teammate, and we love him, and we're going to support. And I think that's kind of how it came out.
Now, I will say what he said was real because I'm a fan of Mid-American Conference, as you know, and he being a former Akron resident, I am familiar with him when he was coach at Toledo and Gary Finknell. There was no doubt they were not going to play if something did not happen. This brings me back to Mr. Butler. I was wondering if what happened with Wolf resigning, had to do with his parents. Now, I know it sounds like a total stretch, but if they're big donors of the school or even the football team, the only reason why I ask this is because it's reported that his father is an executive at Union Pacific. Did big donors there threaten to pull the plug on the school and force them out? Now that is not being talked about. That's a question that needs to be asked. And that question needs to be asked very publicly. I'm sorry, it does. Now, as you know, Wolf did resign. In the video, he explains why.
Repeating myself so that Curator Stewart can help me. I'm resigning as president of the University of Missouri System. My motivation in making this decision comes from love. I love MU, Columbia, where I grew up, in the state of Missouri. I've thought and prayed about this decision. It's the right thing to do. The response to this announcement, I'm sure, ranges from joy for some to anger to others, and that's why we're here today. So let me speak to why this is so important at this time. To our students, from concerned students 1950 to our grad students, the football players and other students, the frustration and anger that I see is clear, real, and I don't doubt it for a second. I'd ask everybody, from students to faculty, to staff, to my friends, everybody, use my resignation to heal and start talking again, to make the changes necessary, and let's focus on changing what we can change today and in the future.
Now, are you probably wondering why it sounds like I'm taking the side of the school? Well, folks, I am not. If there was a legacy of this happening here, there needed to be something done, and there's no question about that. So don't even try to go after me on that. However, I turned on the protesters, not because how they were handling it, but after reading some of the demands, that made me very upset. And the very first demand, and I quote, here's what they said. Tim Wolf must acknowledge his white privilege, recognize that systems of oppression exist, provide a verbal commitment fulfilling concerned students' 1950 demands. We want Tim Wolf, amidst his gross negligence, allowing his driver hit one of the demonstrators, consenting to the physical violence of bystanders, and lastly refusing to intervene when the Columbia Police Department used excessive force with the demonstrators. Really? I have to ask myself two questions with this, or two issues, One, you are making him speak as he is a bigot and he has said privilege, and two, there is no proof that the driver did it intentionally, hit the students. Those two demands alone make you very suspect in all of this. It really does. Now, I will not get into the protest involving Tim, Ty, and Melissa Click. That is for a completely different video. But I will talk about 1950. Your actions become more damaging than the cause itself, and you know it. From what I've been reading, you are projecting black guilt on everyone, and when you get called on it, you are playing the victim. I got big issues with that because you make it look like you look way worse than what you were doing, and you know you didn't. You have students there now scared to think what is on their mind out in public. And for a learning center, that is a scary thought because you're supposed to do the opposite, and you know it. You want change? Fine, but you need everyone, and I mean everyone, to make it happen. Just not black students. That should have been something you learned in kindergarten. You have a long way to go to learn what your mistakes are, but you will get there. But it needs a lot more to be done. And this is Lance Bell, reminding you, be careful, and remember, fear the root.